Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone is working hard answering the questions in the day 23 Google Doc about progressives and Teddy Roosevelt and all that good stuff. So I just want to take a minute to personally go over some information that's really important and that's going to help us prepare for the graded activity that we have today. So what you should do right now is to get out your notebook. If you don't have it out already, we're going to take a couple slides of notes together. As we're going through the video, if I go too fast because I'm not there with you, whoever is subbing can always pause the video until people are ready for us to move on. So far, when we've talked about the progressives of this time period, we've mostly been focusing on progressives who are living in big cities, who are looking for changes in those big cities. Usually, the progressives that we've talked about so far are middle class. Many times they're women, many times they are white. For African Americans, though, the progressive movement does not really do very much to help them. We've talked about the problems facing African Americans since the beginning of this class, from slavery to the Reconstruction unit. African Americans have consistently been victimized by white supremacy in the state and national government. Since slavery ended, we talked about how society followed segregation. Segregation means separating people because of their race. It helps me to remember what segregation means because it sounds a lot like separation. So here we can see actually a primary source, an image from this time period where there's a brand new flying machine, and in the powered flying machine in the front of the flying machine in the front are only white people, and all African American passengers are connected to this blimp in the back. Segregation was a fact of life throughout the country, both North and South. It separated people because of their race in stores, in restaurants, in schools, in libraries, and swimming pools, in all facets of society. And unfortunately, most white progressives, while they would fight for change in many parts of society, did not fight very much against segregation. Historians have actually created a term to describe this segregation, and they use the term Jim Crow. So if there are laws that are separating people, historians use the term a Jim Crow law. The actual term Jim Crow comes from a character who were in these plays called minstrel shows, where a white actor would put grease or coal or some other kind of makeup over their face to make them look like they're black, pretend that they were African American, and portray black people in very stereotypical and negative ways. This is where a lot of the ideas of blackface really first originates in the United States. And unfortunately, with the Halloween season, we see many people dress up and pretend to be somebody from a different race and use makeup or some other method to pretend they're a race or ethnicity that they are not. And so when we talk about Jim Crow laws, we are referring to any law that separates people, that prevents people from mixing together. These were very common in the 1800s, especially in southern states. So is it legal to separate people because of their race? Can a library do this? Can a school do it? Can a restaurant actually separate people based on their race? Well, a question came up about that in 1896. There was a man who was on a train, and he was separated from the white passengers because he was Black. He would eventually sue, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. At the Supreme Court, the justices there legalized segregation laws. They said it was okay for the government and private businesses to separate people based on their race as long as the two places are equal. So they could separate white and Black students at a school as long as one white school and one Black school are equal. Unfortunately, this law is going to separate people for the next 70 years in legal segregation. And while they say that the two places are equal, they usually were not. It was very hard to enforce and change that. One thing I also noticed is I see a picture of all the judges who made this decision. They're all old, they're all white, and they're all men. So unfortunately, they made a poor decision, a terrible decision that is going to lead to segregation in laws for the next 70 years. And so African American progressives would look for how to gain more rights for Black people in the United States. We've talked about one way progressives got things to change was by organizing. African American progressives did this as well. One group that did this was the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. This group is going to raise money and fight for equality by suing the government and businesses, by taking them to court and stressing that the government is supposed to protect people equally. Another important progressive during this time is Ida B. Wells. She was an example of a muckraker, who we talked about last time, as somebody who tries to spread truth to something that's being hidden. She wrote about the number of lynchings that were increasing in the United States during this time. More and more people were being lynched, which is, remember, illegally being killed by mobs as the century ends. She wanted the government to pass anti-lynching laws, and the government, unfortunately, would not listen. And more people were killed as groups like the KKK begin to resurface. And so this next section is actually going to help you with your activity for today. We have two men, Booker T. Washington and Webb Du Bois. Both of these men are progressives who are going to look for ways to give African Americans more rights, more opportunities, and more access. However, they're going to have very different opinions on how that should happen. And so that's what we want to look at today. We want to evaluate what are their plans and determine the effectiveness of their plans. How well did it work? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this slide to you. We're not going to read over this together. But when you do your activity today, you can use information here and the document that's linked on the activity to help you fill in the information about Booker T. Washington and Webb Du Bois. So after reading through this and taking notes on that document using this information, you're going to pretend that Booker T. Washington and Webb Du Bois are having a conversation. What would they talk about? What would they agree about? What would they disagree about? That's where you're going to put into your assignment today. And then you're going to look at Ida B. Wells a little bit more and determine whether she would agree with Booker T. Washington or Webb Du Bois. Would she like them? Would she agree with them? What would she want to work with them about? So you can work either on your own or with a partner. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask an adult in the room. Thank you so much.